Here comes the play-by-play.
All right, Thursday night, time to break down the tape. Still with us, Democrat Peter Fenn, Republican Ron Bonjean, and Washington Post reporter Neil Malika Henderson. Let's start with Sarah Palin. I'm a little crazy. I sit in my office and I watch things online, and she did an interview with the Fox Business Channel yesterday, and the anchor was talking about, bad people, in his view, who vote for these Wall Street bailouts, the TARP program, Toxic Asset Relief Program. And among those he mentioned as voting for that, in his view a bad decision, was this guy named John McCain, who just won a primary in Arizona, but happened to have been Sarah Palin's boss, running mate, back in the presidential election. So Governor Palin says,
certainly Senator McCain, and I think that he would be quite admitting of this too. He's seen the light in some respects on some of these issues.
What light?
Anybody here seeing the light?
Bright light?
I don't really know what to make of all that, but I do know McCain did win his primary the other night. He did all he can to win, and he pulled it off. But yeah, no,
as you know, the TARP vote, whether Democrat or Republican, this is being used against them in the campaign out there. It has become a toxic vote. And it was McCain and Obama. Remember, they came off the campaign trail. They called it a suspension. I remember when they met with President Bush. But I guess she's got to be nice to him, right? He kind of made her famous.
Yeah, she's she was out in Arizona campaigning for him, and he was able to pull out a really big win out there. So she's coming to his defense.
He went right. He'll come on back to the center. That'll be the name of this game.
You can hope. We'll see what happens. Let's stay in Alaska for a minute, because one thing we have seen across the country, but particularly in Alaska, is when these candidates do get challenged by a Tea Party candidate, the Republican incumbents often move a little bit to the right. One of the issues in the race up in Alaska became Senator Lisa Murkowski and her views on cap-and-trade legislation. Here is an ad she ran just before the Republican primary.
When the president tried to pass cap-and-trade, Lisa had the courage to stand up to him because she knew how devastating it would be for Alaska jobs.
Now, remember that. Lisa had the courage to stand up to him because she knew how devastating it would be. Well, her opponent had a pretty good research team, because they remembered this conversation Lisa Murkowski had on C-SPAN back in 2009, where she sounded a little different.
Count me as one of those who will keep my mind open as we move forward in looking at all aspects of this. I have said repeatedly that when we're talking about climate change legislation, we need to make sure that all the options are on the table out there.
Now, to be fair to Senator Murkowski, in the end, she didn't like the proposal, or by the time it got around to it, she said no, but she's a lot more open-minded there.
Yeah, I think both teams are right here, actually. I mean, she did, in the end, oppose the EPA from trying to regulate greenhouse gases. The vote in the Senate failed that she was pushing, but she did come out for it. And back in 2009, it was a free-for-all. No one knew what the cap-and-trade legislation was going to be or what kind of form it was. But could she have been a little bit stronger in it? Yes, I agree.
There is a point here, though, I think, John, which is, heaven forbid that you should keep your mind open. Heaven forbid that you should have everything on the table. I mean, if we are going to govern, and this goes to your last segment, I mean, we have to have people who come in with open minds. And I think one of the problems we've got right now in some of these primaries is people are being forced into boxes. Not a good thing.
On both sides.
Yeah, I mean, there's such partisanship and strong feelings on both sides. People are really having to, lurch for the left or the right to get some traction.
And in an environment like that, where there's so much partisanship, we are seeing in a half-dozen states or so candidates who say, I'm not like them, and actually running as independents. I want to show you an ad. Elliot Cutler, he made his name in Democratic politics, but he's running for governor of Maine as an independent, and in this ad, he literally is walking in the middle of the road.
Maine can work. We can create jobs, incomes, and opportunity, but only if we get away from partisan politics and move back to common sense problem solving. I'm Elliot Cutler. Independent.
Independent. Independent. Just like Maine.
Just like Maine.
Now, Maine has a track record. It has had independent governors in the past. Angus King, great last name. Is this the model when people are disgusted with politics and they think all the politicians just talking points, beholden to the parties? Will we see more of this?
I think so, John. I mean, a lot of folks are going to go towards that middle, trying to capture that middle, be independent from the two parties. This is actually a very good ad. This is a 60-second spot, and he comes out with a lot of issues. It's a very, very smart and well-done ad. I think it'll help him a lot.
I completely agree. I mean, if you're going to win an election, you've got to attract independents, and I'd say both Democrats and Republicans should follow his lead and try to become the kumbaya candidate. You know, Maine does have a history of independent governors, Angus King, Jim Longley, and that whole walking thing is interesting because Jim Longley, a former governor, did the whole walking thing too. I find it fascinating.
It's a very visual, you know, and kind of arresting ad. I mean, we see this down in Florida with Charlie Crist. He's running as an independent. It looks like he's going to be able to attract some Democrats who are a little, you know, shaky on Kendrick Meek down there. So I think it is going to be a tack that people take.
Going to be some studying of this. All right. Well, I want to show some pictures as we go to break real quick. Tiger Woods isn't the only one working on his golf swing. Can we show those pictures just very quick, then we'll get to break. That's the President of the United States. It's been rainy on Martha's Vineyard, but he got out there today on the links. Good for him. He deserves a little golf game on vacation. I'll get criticized for saying that, but every president deserves a vacation. There we go. When we return, it's your turn to ask the questions. Pete Dominick is on the street.
Prilosec OTC traveled to Fairbanks, Alaska, home of one of the coldest, longest nights on the planet, and asked frequent heartburn sufferers like Carl to put Prilosec OTC's 24-hour heartburn protection to the test for 2 weeks. The results?
I can concentrate on everything I'm doing, not even think about it.